It's Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods.
Six the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. It is a Thursday, and I swear I can see the weekend from here.
Today's show is sponsored by banana-scented nose hair clippers. Clipping your nose hair never smelled so good.
I'd like to have some strawberry-flavored baby cherry, too.
Warning, this show contains reference to guns, liberty, limited government, low taxation, the cult of climate change, free thinking, cigar smoking, short people, rubber chickens, Karen's bureaucracy, liberal buzzwords, tour runs, traffic, toilets, terrible jokes, and more. No apologies will be issued. Guest callers may express any opinion they want without fear of being canceled. Unless you're a loudmouth jerk like Dave, then Glenn will hang up on you. Strap in, hold on to your coffee, and feel free to participate.
This disclaimer does not refer to every person named Dave, just one particular Dave from San Francisco. We know a lot of Daves. They call this show all the time, and they're great people. So don't call this program and complain that we use your name. That would be a real Dave move, Dave. It's one of those mornings where there's so much going on, I had to sit here for a moment or so and think, where do I begin? Decided to go back to the Carolinas and Tennessee for this, where they're having a lot of trouble up in the Appalachian Mountains, of course, still trying to rescue people at this point. Now, let's back up just a little bit to Hurricane Katrina, quite a few years ago, I know, but when Hurricane Katrina happened, one of the big complaints was, yes, the National Guard and the Coast Guard came in, and you know they're great at rescuing, but there was a lot of bureaucracy. And most of the work that got done in rescuing in the beginning, early stages of it, was actually done by civilians. And also the rebuilding effort. When FEMA came in and dumped billions of dollars into places, New Orleans and surrounding towns, and most of that money went to waste and not a lot got done. But it was private enterprise and civilian private organizations that helped more than anything else. In fact, out of North Carolina, Samaritan's Purse is one of the best organizations to donate to if you really want to get money through a civilian organization to those people who really need it the most to get what they need. Now, in this case, here's a headline for you. Politicians are hindering rescue efforts in North Carolina, and one rescuer has had enough. Now, this guy's from Florida. If you would, I'd like you to listen to what he had to say. The only thing I edited out is he repeated himself a few times. So I took that out. And any places where he might have paused for a moment. But this guy came up from Florida. He's with a group that does rescues. It's a private organization. He does have a military background now. And he's had just about enough.
I really don't want to make this video, but it is literally a matter of life and death for the people of North Carolina. My name is Jonathan Howard. I'm a member of the Florida State Guard Special Missions Unit. And I'm also up here with Aerial Recovery, a nonprofit. Here's the problem. I'm going to tell you everything that's happening from the ground, what I'm actually seeing, because what they're telling you is complete from the news, and these politicians don't have a clue and they're lying. And I'll say this now, and I'll say it at the end of the video. The only thing I need from this video is helicopters. If I have helicopters, I can save lives. Without helicopters, I can't reach these people. It doesn't matter how many chainsaws and trucks I got, I can't get to them. They're 10 miles in, 20 miles, 40 miles in the mountains. There's no way to get with them or even communicate with them. I am literally flying around in a civilian helicopter looking for SOS messages carved in the mud or painted on the ground, and we're dropping down and saving them. What got me fired up about this was yesterday, me and my team did the rescue of that 11-day-old baby. And all these government officials and social media, they're showing that video, that pictures and video of that rescue, and claiming that like government helped with that. I think it was USA Today wrote an article about it saying it was a Florida National Guard that went and got it, like with a helicopter. No, it was me, my buddy Charlie, and a civilian named Zeb with his own personal helicopter out of Wilmington, North Carolina. Like without that civilian, that baby would be dead. And the old lady we went and rescued after that, she'd be dead too because she had 1 day left of oxygen. No one was going to go get them. I will tell you, when we go up in the air, I probably see 40 civilian helicopters, and I might see 2 Blackhawks, National Guard, military, whatever they are. That's it. There's no military. There's no one's doing nothing. It blows my mind. And they're not even allowing people to see what's really going on. One of our friends yesterday, they were actually escorting CNN down at Lake Lure, and they wouldn't even let CNN, the sheriff department would not let them go videotape the bad areas, how destructive it is. I don't know why they don't want to show you all that. When I flew here on Sunday, they actually stopped us from going in, which, by the way, the civilian is paying all this out of his own pocket. He's not even looking for a reimbursement. I think we did 4 refuelings yesterday, and that was like just in half a day's work. We're in Nashville, and I saw 2 Air Force helicopter 60s, and I knew they were PJs just looking at them. And I went up to them, like, hey guys, like, what are y'all doing? This is what you need to be doing. This is how I'm finding people. And they're like, we can't go. We're waiting on Title 10 orders. They can't get any authority. There's military helicopters all over here sitting on the ground, and they can't do nothing. Even my JSOC boys in Fayetteville, they can't get orders to come out here. It is just the most disgusting thing, and they're killing these people.
And he went on for quite a bit longer, but you get the general idea. And we've seen this before in other operations. There was another one, I'm forgetting the name of the hurricane. It was after Katrina and a few years after. And a hurricane hit Galveston, Texas. And Galveston was hurting. They needed to get all sorts of material down there. One of them was just ice. A lot of things you can use ice for, including keeping food from spoiling, and food's kind of important. So they want to get, and they don't have any electricity to make refrigeration or anything like that. So they're going to go ahead and get ice down there. Your government couldn't seem to get it done. And a bunch of private truckers, and I remember hearing one of them on the news screaming, this is not that hard, guys. You just get it down there. In other words, they would load up their trucks and drive down there, and when they were told, no, stop, you can't go in, or you need whatever paperwork to get in or approval from whatever, they would just ignore it and go in, which is a way to do it. Just get it done instead of waiting for approval and paperwork and et cetera, bureaucracy to get done. Same thing was the case in Hurricane Katrina and many other situations. Now, I'm not going to say that the government is never good because, again, your Coast Guard excels at this. Your National Guard excels at this. Okay, there are people that we have trained, especially when it comes to your local police and rescuers, who are often overwhelmed. But this is what they do, and they know the community. But what needs to get out of the way is the politicians and the bureaucracy, and just let these guys work. Give them the tools they need. They need fuel, for example. Give it to them. What else do they need? What are they asking for? Just give it to them and let these guys do their job and get out of the way. And for the love of God, with the politicians, and I know this is going to fall on deaf ears, but with the politicians, stay out away from the cameras. I know there's always that criticism if the politician doesn't get in front of the cameras. Well, where is he? What is he doing? Yeah, and I get it. It's a good idea to update the public on what's going on and so on. But mostly, what the politicians should be doing is just making sure the people that we've trained have what they need to go get the job done, then get out of the way and let them get it done. Learn to coordinate stuff like this. In most cases, I find when we have a situation like this, throughout my life, I've seen several, I know you have too, and usually the people who do the best work, it's like our Cajun Navy, you've heard about them. Those are people who are doing the best work out there, and they're just a bunch of civilians who have gotten together and talked about the best way maybe to handle a situation like this, and they get out there and they just do it. Get whatever craft you have, whether you're a machine operator, a boat operator, or an aircraft operator, whatever it might be. Just get in there and get in your machine, do what you do. Get it done. Quit sitting around doing paperwork and quit posing for the cameras. Don't need it. There was a case in New Orleans, Hurricane Katrina. It's been a few years since I've thought about this, but there was, this is when the Cajun Navy got started, when they first got going. There's a bunch of people who were in flooded out areas and need rescuing, and here come all these fishermen with things like bass boats and airboats. In other words, boats that don't tread a whole lot of water. They're flat bottoms, and they can get into areas and backwaters, bayous, and so on. And so all these people started showing up with anything they could float in the area, and were coordinating with each other and the local sheriff. Where do we go? Where are the homes? Point to the homes. We'll get to those people. And some bureaucrat from D.C. called the local sheriff, you can't send those guys out there. We have to worry about liability. And the governor of Louisiana at the time showed up just in time to hear that local sheriff cussing out the bureaucrat and telling him where to stuff it as he told everybody, go, go, go. And that was the beginning of your Cajun Navy, which add that to the list of reasons why I often say that private sector, private citizens do better than government in most cases. 6:15, Wake Up One.
It's Wake Up Glenn Woods on AM 1030 K2 Radio. Join the show at 888-97-WOODS.
6:22 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Again, I was going to go off to something else, but people are commenting, so I'll jump in on. There's been problems up in the Carolinas, up in the Appalachian Mountains, with rescue efforts up there. And as usual, it's politicians and bureaucrats in the way rather than just giving people what they need to get the job done. And part of that, look, just throwing money at it is not enough. We've got a problem there where we're just going to release billions of dollars. Well, good for you. Where's the money going? Because I can tell you, disasters in the past I've watched, I know you have too, as government releases a whole bunch of money, but most of that money disappears into the ether and doesn't go to where it actually needs to go. Things have to be coordinated to get men, material, things we need. So the clip that I played for you before, the guy said, I need helicopters, I need fuel. Go, give them, go. What else you need? Let's just go get it for them, and we'll go ahead and pay for it, and let's just go. Let's get the people and the materials out there and get them coordinated. So, I.D. John, morning, Glenn. Did your cabin survive? Yeah, family cabin did survive. There was neighbors in the area said they would check on it for us, and basically a tree fell down over the driveway, way up on the side of a mountain, deep in the woods too. So that did just fine. Bert says, morning, Glenn. Say what you may about Elon Musk, but he has been helping in North Carolina. And yes, he has. And there's been some other people as well have just shown up, and here's resources. And again, organizations like Samaritan's Purse and other private organizations doing better than your government. And that's not to say government's doing nothing, but they are hampered, as you heard in the audio that I played for you. Red and Casper, don't worry, Glenn. FEMA is asking for more money, and I'm sure Joe will rise to the occasion. We can be sure that more politicians will be paid due to this disaster. And yeah, that's about right. That's where there was a case, it was in Florida, where, again, a hurricane had hit, and FEMA showed up writing checks, handing out money. Later, we took a look at where that money went, and in many cases, people who were not even in the hurricane zone. The hurricane did not affect them at all, but FEMA was showing up, handing out checks to them anyway. Here, take disaster relief. Well, the disaster didn't happen here. You want to head about 50 miles south of here, that's where the disaster hit. Take the money. Let's not also forget, let's go back to Hurricane Katrina, because that was one of the best examples ever, where FEMA, people were homeless, obviously, and FEMA had all of these trailers, and to my eye, it looked like about the width of a single-wide trailer, but about half as long. But there were loads of these trailers. Just a whole massive field for them. Just get those trailers to the people, and there, now they have some place to stay. They have shelter. And yet those trailers just sat there in the field. Eventually, FEMA had to get rid of them, destroy them, because they started getting moldy and so on. You're down in the south. It's hot, it's humid. They start getting mold inside. No one's taking care of them. They fell apart. So there's all that money, and they were never used for the disaster. Well, if you have all of these trailers to help people who are suddenly homeless, that's the idea. Here's some temporary shelter in the form of a trailer. We can just drive the trailers down to the area and just tell families, here, move in. At least it's a place for now. So do it. That's a good idea. Just deliver the trailers. And yet the trailers were never delivered. You can see the aggravation here. This is part of what drives me nuts. Here, I'll give you one that did work, though. Back when my hometown of Sanibel Island was hit by Hurricane Ian, there is a causeway that goes out to Sanibel. That's a rather long causeway. The island's not close to the shore at all. So it's a long causeway. So you have a bridge section and then a section of land, and then another bridge section of land. And that whole thing was just wiped out. So Governor DeSantis showed up and said, okay, we're going to get this bridge up and running now. I have never seen a bridge put together faster so they could connect residents with the island once again. That was done in record time. When they first said they were going to do this, I was scratching my head thinking, really? You're going to have a bunch of government bureaucrats show up and try to repair that? Well, again, if you give the engineers the materials they need, again, throwing money at it doesn't do anything. You've got to get them what they need. As soon as they start telling you, in order to do this, we need the following. We need this equipment, this kind of fuel, this kind of planning, et cetera, and get out of the way. These are guys who know what they're doing, and let them do it. And they did it in record time. So when you have the right people in place, your government can do a fantastic job at it. which leads me to, so then I would say currently we don't have the right people in place. We really don't. Here's Avocado and Laramie. Hi, Glenn. Top of the morning to you. So is there a Frank Gambino show? I've got a sports question about the Wyoming Cowboys. I tell you what, Avocado, type me. He's texting me over the Wake Up Wyoming app. So type me your question, and when I get Frank on in the next segment, I'll go ahead and ask him that question. See, another great use for the app there. All right. Here in Wyoming, we're still dealing with the fires, as you can imagine. And for some people, because of wind direction today, there's some smoke alerts out there. There's a story on that, a daily smoke update on the Wake Up Wyoming site this morning. That and some other Wyoming news regarding the fires I'll have for you coming up next. Right now, local news. Update on the weather forecast. You and I get back into it again. 888-97 Woods, the phone number. That's 888-97. WOODS, Wake Up Wyoming.
Take Glenn anywhere with the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods on AM 1030 K2 Radio.
6:36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. It's a Thursday. My name's Glenn Woods. Hi, how you doing? So, okay, Miss Mary was just attacked by the coffee machine. She was telling me all about it. She went to make herself a cup of coffee, and basically by the time it was all done, she had coffee down her pant leg, and the coffee machine attacked her. So she's off dealing with that right now. Rhiannon Fort Danger, Glenn, do you know if any of the fires are contained? Well, let's take a look at it. First off, if you were to take a look, there is a smoke and fire map. In fact, look up the WSFD Interactive Fire Map, WSFD Interactive Fire Map. And you can focus on Wyoming with this. But if you look over at Idaho, up in the mountains, wow. There's a lot going on. You think we have it bad. A lot going on up there. Now, here in Wyoming, there's quite a few fires that have been contained, and that's a good thing. The Lamont incident, which is a fire that's in the Laramie Range, and that's, if you look at Glendo, go west, or if you look at Douglas, go south, and you can triangulate right in there. There's other fires. If we head up to, this is right on the Wyoming-Montana border, the Remington fire, 100% contained. And next to it is the Short Draw fire that's contained. When I take a look at, remember there was a big fire that was, let's see, between, and this one's out, which I'm pleased to say it's out. But we had a big fire that was between Casey on up to Buffalo. Out, gone, done. All right. But replaced by the Elk Fire. Now, that's the big sucker that sits right there above Sheridan. And there's a couple of towns as you head up Highway 14 to get up over the mountain. Highway 14, that area is closed. You're not getting up over the Bighorns that way right now. That has burned about over 37,000 acres so far. And keeps getting close to the communities down below, but hadn't gotten there yet. 0% containment. And that's one of the big smoke makers. I mean, big-time smoke makers out there. So not any containment there. 0. That sucker is big-time out of control. Now, we also have, if you head on over to the Teton National Forest, that's where, and it's not closed today, but Togety Pass has been closed a couple of times because of the Fish Creek fire and the Pack Trail fire. Now, at times, those two fires have gotten real close to containment, and then they lost ground. And it just depends on what the wind's doing up there. And the winds have been a major factor, literally fanning the flames. So right now, Fish Creek fire is over 25,000 acres and 87% contained. And then the Pack Trail fire is over 18,000, almost 19,000 acres and 0% contained. And here, one of the biggest problems that they have, once again, is just the wind picking up. They're doing fine when there's not a whole lot of wind, obviously. But then we get 40-mile-an-hour gusts. It's that time of year again in Wyoming. And there you go, fanning the flames. Also, north of there in the Shoshone National Forest is the Clearwater Fire, which has burned about 2,000 acres. That's 93% contained. There's some other smaller fires around Wyoming that they've got pretty quick. In fact, I got a call, and several people texted me yesterday that, it was around the Guernsey area. It was north. You know where the dryer pullover is? So if you're heading up I-25 and you're north of Wheatland, and there's a really big, beautiful rest stop that the state has put. Dryer Junction is what it's called, DWYER Junction. And I use that rest stop on occasion. I have peed there. Well, north of there was a fire that opened up on a ranch, and it was, they quickly got up. All sorts of people were sending me pictures and texting me, hey, there's this fire right along the interstate. So I got to head down to Cheyenne today, and on my way down, especially on my way back, I'm going to take a look at what happened there. But that was one that they jumped on, and boy, got that out. Jason and Douglas, Watch Duty is another good fire app. Okay, I will do that one. Let's try that. I love today's internet. There we go. Watch Duty, Wildfire, Map, and App. Okay, and I'm glad that is also an app that I can use on my phone. All right, thanks for that. I'll go ahead and take a look at this as an app to put on my phone. He just sent me one. This is Jason and Douglas, and it's called Watch Duty. See, there's Colorado. Get up to Wyoming. There you go. I like that it's an app, because the other ones I can get to the internet on my phone, look at it, and it's perfectly fine. But to have an app really makes it a whole lot more helpful. And also, I do have a story up this morning if you want to look at it. It's on the Wake Up Wyoming site. At some point, Ms. Mary will alert it out. And it has to do with the daily, basically, smoke impact. Because every so often I get a notice on my phone about air quality, and there's an air quality warning for parts of Wyoming. And since our winds keep changing direction, you can imagine that smoke keeps getting blown around. So there have been, I know you've experienced this too. There's been days I stepped outside and it's just yellow out there. And then a little bit later on, the wind changes direction and picks up, and all of a sudden it's clear. Like nothing's going on anywhere whatsoever. So if you want an update on the smoke, I got one of those on the Wake Up Wyoming site again this morning. Now, we'll need a weather forecast with all of this, so here's the extended forecast with Don Day.
Got something to say? Call 888-97-WOODS or chat with Glenn on the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app from K2 Radio.
6:48 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Off to the icebox we go. Frank Gambino is waiting by. Frank, I have a question for you from a listener.
Okay.
He texted me by using the handle, like old CB radio handles, Avocado. He's in Laramie.
Okay, Avocado.
Okay.
Good morning.
I listened to Wyo Air Force football game on radio. Mm-hmm. Damn good game. Mm-hmm. Heard the sports announcer mention the phrase, the explanation point, a couple of times in reference to our quarterback. Was wondering if that was his game nickname now.
That's a new one on me.
Okay.
I didn't listen to the game.
Right.
So I watched it off and on, but I don't. Yeah. I have no clue.
Okay. So now you have some investigative reporting to do, because I know inquiry minds.
That means I'd have to actually call somebody.
Oh, okay.
And talk to the guy who I know, like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yes, that's exactly right. Why did you keep saying the explanation point? What is up with you?
I don't know.
Yes.
I will find out eventually.
Okay, and there's the thing. If it is, here's, I think, how we solve this. If other people start to use it, then it has become his nickname. If nobody else is using it, then someone tried to make it his nickname, but it didn't happen.
Exclamation point.
The explanation point. I think that's kind of a long nickname.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go with that with somebody unless you just wanted to go explanation or the point.
Yeah,
or something like that.
No comprende at this point. Yes.
By the way, UW has the weekend off.
Yes,
here,
they
right?
do.
They do. Okay. And normally I would say if they were doing well, guys, take the weekend off, rest and recuperate. But no, you got work to do.
Well, yeah, and they got a lot of players that are not exactly healthy either.
Okay.
So this comes at a really good time. People with the normal bumps and bruises of football, plus injuries even more severe than that.
And bruised egos too.
They won their last game, so now they're so maybe this bye week I think comes at a good time for them.
Yes.
Just, all right, you finally won a game. Mm-hmm. People will get off your backs for a bit.
No.
And when they start losing again, people will be on their backs again.
All over again, yeah.
All right. The Major League Baseball playoffs in full swing with the wild card round. In the American League, Detroit eliminated Houston 2-0. 5-2. The Tigers have not been in the playoffs since 2014, and Houston have been in the American League Championship Series 7 straight years, so Detroit will play Cleveland in the next round. Kansas City, who is making their first playoff appearance in 9 years, beat Baltimore 2-1 to win that series 2-0. So the Royals will take on the New York Yankees in the next round. In the National League, San Diego beats Atlanta 5-4 to win that series 2-0. The Padres went 45-19 after the All-Star break. They'll meet the Los Angeles Dodgers in the next round. And Milwaukee staved off elimination, beating the New York Mets yesterday 5-3 with 3 runs in the 8th inning. That best-of-3 series is tied at 1 game apiece, and Game 3 will be tonight. In high school volleyball from last night, the Laramie, who has lost just 1 match so far this year, defeated Cheyenne East 3-0. Cheyenne Central over Cheyenne South 3-0. And tonight, Cheyenne Central will take on Laramie in another volleyball match. Our latest WyoPreps.com volleyball poll is out. Laramie number 1 in 4A, followed by Kelly Walsh, Thunder Basin, Green River, and Sheridan. Douglas remains number 1 in 3A, followed by Cody, Wheatland, Powell, and Pinedale. Bighorn remains number 1 in 2A, followed by Tongue River, Wright, Pine Bluffs, and Sundance. And Little Snake River leads the 1A ranks, followed by Cokeville, Southeast, Linglefort, Laramie, and Encampment. In 4A high school football coming up on Friday, first of all, Cheyenne South will forfeit this week's game against Campbell County due to an inordinate amount of injuries. They only had 19 kids practice out of 38. Plus, South is 0-5, and Campbell County is not lost a game, so Campbell County probably would have beaten South no matter what by 30, 40, 50 points. It would have been something like that. Sheridan will be at Cheyenne Central. Sheridan is still rated number 1 in our Wild Preps poll in 4A. Cheyenne East on the road in Casper on Friday to take on Kelly Walsh. Laramie on the road in Casper to meet Natrona. And Thunder Basin will be at Rock Springs. In junior college soccer, the Casper College men's team is 8-4-1 after a 3-3 tie with Central Wyoming. The Casper College women's team is 7-2-3 after a 4-0 win over Cheyenne of Central Wyoming College. And both teams, the T-Bird men and women, will host Gillette College on Saturday. The LCCC men's soccer team is 8-2 after an 8-0 win over Trinidad. The LCCC women's soccer team 6-4-2 after a 9-0 win over Trinidad. And both those teams will host Western Nebraska coming up on Saturday. That's it in sports.
So throwing a little kerosene on the fire for you. So we do have UW volleyball not playing San Jose because of a transgender player over there. WyoFile reports, but the University of Wyoming competed against a transgender athlete in 2022, and nobody seemed to care. There was no controversy whatsoever.
Or they didn't know.
Or they didn't know. Yeah, one or the other, yeah. So that's just, they posted the story, which I think it's good to go back and take a look at the record and what exactly happened there, and why is it a controversy now. So let's see if there's any response to that.
Well, things changed, and you know what?
The
Cowgirl volleyball team ultimately decided to play or not to play.
Right. All right. Thank you, Frank. Appreciate it. Coming up on some local business that you got to take care of. And then we'll get into news time. National local update on the weather forecast. You and I get back into it again. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Six of time. Let's Wake Up Wyoming. It is a Thursday, and unless you're in one of those smoke-ridden areas, sorry about that. I can see the weekend from here anyway. Hope you can.
Today's show is sponsored by Armpit Hair Dye. Because waving goodbye should be more colorful.
I think that was yesterday's. Wait, let me try a different one.
Today's show is sponsored by banana-scented nose hair clippers.
That's better.
Clipping your nose hair never smelled so good.
Okay, I was saying I swear I can see the weekend from here, and then I suddenly realized some of you are under a smoke alert, and you know where you are if you are under one, so maybe you can't see the weekend from here, but I swear to you, it's coming.
Warning, this show contains reference to guns, liberty, limited government, low taxation, the cult of climate change, free thinking, cigar smoking, short people, rubber chickens, Karen's bureaucracy, liberal buzzwords, tour runs, traffic, toilets, terrible jokes, and more. No apologies will be issued. Guest callers may express any opinion they want without fear of being canceled. Unless you're a loudmouth jerk like Dave, then Glenn will hang up on you. Strap in, hold on to your coffee, and feel free to participate.
This disclaimer does not refer to every person named Dave, just one particular Dave from San Francisco. We know a lot of Daves. They call this show all the time, and they're great people. So don't call this program and complain that we use your name. That would be a real Dave move, Dave. Now, I'm about to mention someone here, which, as you know, will cause your head to explode. Many of you already know who I'm about to mention. And as I get into the story, I'm going to say, don't blame me. DJ in Gillette. Yes, DJ, I'm throwing you the hell under the bus. DJ in Gillette sent me this story, knowing full well that I would have to go with it. The story is about Liz Cheney. Yeah, I play that because, for those who don't know why, when Cheney suddenly went rogue on us, because she was actually a very good representative for us, about the most conservative member of the House of Representatives, then she started this whole Trump derangement thing and went way off. And at that point, whenever her name was mentioned, people's heads would explode. So I put that sound effect together. Here's how it works. Ready? Liz Cheney. Okay. The reason that DJ sent me this story, you might remember a little while ago, Cheney decided to go ahead and endorse Kamala Harris. And if you think, well, that's it, she's a Democrat now. Liz is a Democrat. No, she's still about the most conservative person you never meet. It's just that Liz, again, Trump derangement syndrome, is afraid of Trump and is firmly convinced that Trump wants to end democracy and et cetera, et cetera. Where she got all of that from, I don't know, it's way over the top. My thought was if she didn't like the guy and had a problem with him, then go ahead and support somebody who the rest of us could support. Like a Governor DeSantis type, something like that. But, all right, at this point, if our choices are between Harris and Trump, Cheney's going to go ahead and vote for Harris. So here's the headline. Cheney to join Harris campaign event at birthplace of Republican Party. Former Representative Liz Cheney, Republican Wyoming, will join Vice President Kamala Harris on Thursday for a campaign event in Ripon, Wisconsin, aimed at appealing to Republicans and independent voters, according to a senior campaign official. The event, which will take place at the birthplace of the Republican Party, is Cheney's first campaign appearance with Harris as she endorsed the VP last month, within less than 35 days to the election. Wow. Harris' campaign is working to make overtures to the undecided and still persuadable. Okay, now, Harris will be speaking from a schoolhouse that's considered the birthplace of the GOP, is expected to laud Cheney as a patriot for putting her country over party for the event. So you can understand how that's going to play out. Now, on that note, let me go ahead and call something up that I had. See, I don't know why I'm going so far to get to it. It's right down here. As far as the independent voters go, and as far as the undecided goes, not as many will even vote like you might have thought of, or at all, for that matter. It was very interesting. I come across a look at not so much opinions, but statistics. So when they say the persuadable, those people who haven't made up their minds yet, and they're going to persuade for the election time, there are some people, but most people who consider themselves to be independents and undecided at this point are usually people who don't go voting at all. And yet, this is where so many politicians about this time, especially news people, try to focus all of their efforts because they really do want those, as they call them, swing voters, Well, again, most of the swing voters end up not voting at all. DJ and Gillespie, under the bus? No, DJ, I say under the bus because I have to go ahead and bring up Cheney again. And that's where some people are going to go, why are we talking about her again? That's why I'm saying under the bus. So, okay. See, threat to actual democracy, Ivy League students, there's, she can't because she is one. Politicians, rescue efforts, okay, and then teacher gets, okay. I'm looking for the story that I had on this news about who actually will get those votes if they vote at all. I was really, I would say a little bit surprised when I first came across this story because we spend, and then I thought, well, maybe I shouldn't be surprised about it. We spend so much time worrying about and fighting during election time over those people who have that swing vote or the people who are undecided. Those who don't pay attention to politics until the last possible minute. That's where so much effort is thrown as we get close to campaign or close to voting time. So much time is thrown into let's make sure that we get those people who are undecided. Those are often called low information voters too, because they spend most of their time just not paying attention to politics. And when they finally get near election time, they sit up and start listening. Oftentimes you will see when they have a panel discussion on one of the major former news networks, they focus on, well, what's the independent going to do? And, well, I haven't made up my mind yet. But are you a likely voter is what I want to know. Are you actually going to vote? Now that you might have made up your mind, are you actually going to go vote? And it turns out in many cases they don't even vote at all. So it's going to be interesting to see how this turns out. One of the reasons why I say that the polls that we listen to as we get closer to election time are really not worth listening to, because they focus so much on what the independent and likely voter might do, and then it turns out many of those people aren't going to show up at all to vote. So it's really going to be interesting to see. I think it will be a close election when we finally get to it, but that's just a gut instinct. At this point, I would also say don't listen to the polls. And by the way, I don't think Liz Cheney is really going to have any impact. I mean, I don't think so. In walking around with Kamala Harris at events like this and making speeches. I don't think anyone really cares what she has to say anymore.
Woke Radio, WOKE, broadcasting from Mom's basement until climate change floods it, which according to Greta Thunberg could be any day now, at which point we'll move up to the attic right between the TV antenna and that smelly steamer truck.
He's not a politician, but his pants are on fire. Could someone grab an extinguisher? Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods.
And research to help you take control of the situation with your family and manage the disease together. If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together. Visit alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
7:20 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Head on over to a story which I've been just monitoring for a while. We finally got the latest of it. So I'll go through Cowboy State Daily for this one. Remember the Wyoming parents suing a school over a gender transition problem that they had there. And so the school was going by the rules that were set out for them. Whether they liked it or not, I don't know. But the rule is if a kid shows up and at school and says, my pronouns are, then the school's going to go ahead and use those pronouns, and because the kid's supposed to get privacy, they're not going to tell the parents. Now, I believe that is a federal law or rule. I would say rule, really, but it's a law of some kind. But here in Wyoming, it's not something that we want to see in our schools. So here's the latest. A couple suing Wyoming school district, the story says, on claims that staffers work to socially gender transition their teen behind their backs is planning to bring a nationally known expert to trial with them. Dr. Miriam Grossman is her name, physician, author, public speaker, who is board certified in child, adolescence, and adult psychiatry. She appeared as an expert in the 2022 film What is a Woman, and authored a gender science book, Lost in Transnation, which is actually a good title for a book on this topic, Lost in Transnation, among other works. Last year, she testified on the subject for the U.S. House Committee on Energy and Commerce. If the case of Sean and Ashley Wiley versus Sweetwater School District number 1 goes to trial, as it's expected to do, Grossman will provide testimony, the story says, for the parents, according to a disclosure filed with the court. She will also review and craft a report on the health, education, and other records regarding the teen's health and the school's handling of this whole thing. Grossman, outspoken critic of gender transition. As you can imagine by the title of her book and also being in the film What is a Woman, quote, I wouldn't say Grossman is alone in her approach by any means, according to the attorney for the couple. But she does have experience in treating young children, minors, and that kind of sets her apart in the case just a little bit. The school district's attorney declined any comment on the whole thing. School district superintendent cannot be reached immediately, according to Cowboy State Daily. An amended order filed Tuesday in the case brings in the points that will be made. Okay, and if this is going to go to trial or not, we'll see. So it's filed in U.S. District Court, Wyoming. It was filed back in 2023. The Wiley's complaint, they accused Sweetwater County District Number 1, based in Rock Springs, of enacting a policy compelling staff members to hide students' gender transition from parents. The complaint also says that the Wiley's teenage daughter started going by a boy's name and pronouns while attending Black Butte School, and staffers called the teen by her male terms for the months, hiding it from her parents, not telling her parents what was going on. The case grew even more contentious in May of last year when the Wileys alleged in court filing that a secret phone had been given to the teen. A secret phone, they said, had been given to the teen. When they found it, they learned that at least 3 teachers at the local school were calling the teen by the male name and pronouns against the parents' wishes. So the parents are saying, if our kid shows up and starts doing this, don't play along and let us know. And the school wasn't doing that. So on June 30th, 2023, U.S. District Judge blocked the school district from enforcing its 2022 policy of requiring staffers to respect students' privacy from parents. In other words, the judge told the district it can't hide students' gender transition from parents. You got to tell them. These are not your kids' school. It's the parents' kids. So the parents need to know these things. The story says perhaps the law allows exceptions for cases where a student's in danger, he wrote at times, but the case at hand does not show any such issue. Quote, there is no suggestion that such a situation is the case. The judge declined in the same order to block the district from requiring teachers to use alternate names and pronouns at a student's request. That's part of the policy left intact. The district has generally denied Wiley's claims that it behaved wrongly or contrary to the U.S. Constitution. Now, the story wraps up by saying the Wyoming legislature passed 2 parental rights in education laws in this year. Both roughly trace their origins to this case that we're talking about right now, Wiley's case. Senate File 9, that's the Parental Rights in Education Act, now requires schools to notify parents of changes to what they would say is the student's or the kid's mental health. Kid starts acting differently in any way, and this would be one of those ways, notify the parents. Because once again, who's in charge here? The teachers, the administrators, or the parents? Well, it's the parents' kids, so they're the ones who get to make these decisions, according to the legislators in the state of Wyoming. And the lighter-handed House Bill 92, the story says, sponsored by House Speaker Pro Tem Clark Stith, Republican, Rock Springs, after Stith voiced concerns about the school's privacy policy at a local school board meeting, specifics that the parental rights in Wyoming include communications with the parents. Stitt told other lawmakers that had his bill been in place before the incident with the Wiley family, it would have prevented all of this from happening. So lawmakers refer the Wiley cases frequently when discussing this bill, and they will be discussing more of this. It's going to be interesting to see how this is handled in court. And the expert that they bring in, I think the expert is notable in this case. But to me, it's more about what exactly are the rules in place for the school. So it's good that the lawyer thought to bring in some expert that would plead their side of the case. That's fine. But more of what is the role of the school when it comes to handling your kid. So in other words, when you put your kid on the bus, they go to school, who's still in charge of that kid? Is it you, the parent, or is the school now in charge? And what if people at the school have a different idea about how your kid should be raised than you do? Who's in charge here? That's in my mind anyway. The parent always is. That's why they call this the parental rights bill, because the parent's always in charge here. So if something starts to happen that's contrary to what the parents' beliefs are, then the school needs to notify the parents, because and this would help. It wouldn't solve the problem entirely, but it would help get us away from some schools across the nation that have actually engaged in different types of indoctrination with kids. Kids show up with a certain set of beliefs, and teachers don't agree with the beliefs and start to work on those kids while the kid's at school. Then it's a very influential age, as you can imagine, which is why I also, by the way, it's one thing in public schools, worry about this when kids go to college, because, once again, that's a very influential age for a lot of people. So, Mike from Leeds, South Dakota, there is no gender transition, just mental illness. Coming up on some local news that we have to take care of. We're going to get out of local news into your weather forecast. Now, Don Day joins me at 7:45. Nothing really changes weather-wise except temperature and wind direction changes a lot. That wet that you're hoping to get to help with those forest fires are not coming our way anytime soon. But he will talk about that, especially the wind direction, the temperature, and the forest fires.
Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods, on air, online, and on the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app. Be part of the show at 888-97-WOODS. This is K2 Radio.
7:36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. All right, this story ought to get you. This is just totally out of left field. But again, I'll have to go back to Cowboy State Daily before they found it. Colorado man kills mountain lion with his shovel. He did it to keep it from eating his dog. Here's the story. Colorado man who killed a mountain lion with a shovel probably saved his dog from being devoured by the cat. This is where the guy is out with his dog, and the mountain lion comes around the corner and sees the dog, and the mountain lion starts getting aggressive. A lot of times, depends on the dog, but a lot of times mountain lions will look at dogs as, oh, yum, food. So he is this guy is a Republican House representative from Hewlett. He and his family frequently hunt in the mountains, which has, a lot going on in that area. But anyway, according to the report released Wednesday, the man told Game and Fish agents 95-pound female lion approached him and his husky. So I was picturing, what kind of a dog does the mountain lion think is food? One of those little yapping things is just an appetizer. This was a husky. When the dog enraged the mountain lion, and the mountain lion started acting, again, aggressive toward the dog, the guy grabbed his shovel. This is a quote, as far as killing the mountain lion with a shovel, that would take some effort, I would imagine. Wildlife officer responded next morning to the report saying the aggressive mountain lion was killed at the campground. It's Canyon City, Fremont County, Colorado, according to the report. Officer arrived to find the man with a dead mountain lion on the hood of his Jeep. Well, yeah, of course you take the mountain lion, which is probably heavy to pick up, and you put it up there for display purposes, of course. You just killed the thing with a damn shovel. You take pictures. The man said his dog began growling and barking as the lion approached. The lion kept approaching aggressively. When the lion got within about 10 feet, the dog engaged it, and the man grabbed a shovel. So, okay, I can see how this works, because the mountain lion is focused on the dog. And the dog is not going to win this fight. So while the mountain lion is focused on the dog, he takes a swing. The officer's preliminary finding was that the man was in fear for his life and the dog's life and acted in self-defense, so it's okay. Mountain lion had apparently suffered previous wounds, including an injury to its front right paw and scratches to its back. So it had been in some other fight recently. Don't know, probably with Bigfoot. But anyway, because the man suffered no injuries, he was never touched by the lion. This incident does not qualify as a mountain lion attack, according to the agency. Now, that I disagree with. Hang on, we go back and read that, because that's a quote. Quote, because the man suffered no injuries and was never touched by the lion, the incident does not qualify as a mountain lion attack. Okay, let's say, just for the heck of it, you step outside to go to your car at night, and there's some punk thug jacked up on meth, whatever, picture the situation, whatever you want. And he approaches you aggressively and then takes a swing at you, tries to punch you several times. And you just keep backing up, and those punches don't land. So you decide to defend yourself, and you deck the guy. Because he never injured you, that would not be considered an attack? Yeah, I would say that would be considered an attack, right? So if a mountain lion attacks you, and you're able to step away from the mountain lion, move away so he can't get you, and then you fight back and you win, because you were never injured, that was not a mountain lion? I completely disagree. Of course it wasn't an attack. He just didn't tag you, but he still attacked you. This to me is every bit as bad as the difference between murder and attempted murder. If someone pulls a gun and shoots somebody, but the victim doesn't die, that's attempted murder, that's a lighter sentence. If the guy dies, he gets a harsher sentence. What, the difference because he missed or not? I think the sentence should be the same. Attempted murder should be the same penalty as murder. But okay, there have been 25 recorded mountain lion attacks on humans since 1990, according to the report. If the mountain lion was previously hurt, it might have been starving because it was having trouble finding food. Maybe that's why it would be a bit more aggressive. So in other words, the speculation is the thing would have not gone anywhere near them, but it was hungry enough. Chet and Yoder. Good, one less neighborhood cat. Yeah. Mike from, let's see, I already read that one there. All right. So, yeah, one less cat. If you're going to go, this is why I look at where I grew up and where I went hiking. I was worried about a different kind of animal than you have to worry about here. But still, hiking in the woods, you are taking a risk the deeper you go.
I'm just at the base of a hiking trail. A buddy of mine was like, hey, Paul, do you want to go hiking today? And I was like, yeah, I'd love to be out of breath while we talk for 3.5 hours. I love hiking. You get to be outside and you get to be aware of coyotes and you get to carry around a wooden stick like you're a wizard. And you get to say things like, great day for a hike. And you get to hide and pee at the same time, and you get good cardio and blisters, and you get to ask questions like, do you think that's poisonous? And you get to pass by other hikers and not say anything and just go. And you get to take hiking selfies to show everybody that you're healthier than they are, and you get to see who's going to be the first to say, should we turn around? So I love hiking.
The best talk show host in the state, within his price range. Tune in to Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods, weekdays at 6.
7:45 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Off we go to talk to Don Day weather. So, okay, I just want to get this out of the way, Don. We can talk about smoke. We can talk about changing temperatures. We can talk about wind direction, but we have nothing on any kind of liquid falling from the sky.
No.
Yeah.
No, we really don't. The next several days, I think, are pretty critical, especially with the fire situation up north and in the western parts of the state, because winds are going to ramp up tomorrow and Saturday pretty good again because of these frontal systems that just keep coming off the Pacific, going across southern Canada, and this is causing that yo-yo effect with our temperatures. It'll be cooler today. You can feel it out there this morning. But we go right back up with temperatures again Friday and Saturday with those gusty winds.
Okay. So, and I guess the winds are just because as the temperatures change, that just means, change in pressure or just...
we're getting change in pressure as those lows go across that U.S.-Canadian border there. Pressures just keep going down when they come through, and we're under high pressure here, and we're in that pressure gradient. That just whips up the wind.
Okay. I do notice as I go to some of my favorite websites that do wind forecasts that it's not always coming from the same direction, too. It's not like we can look, let's say, northwest and here comes the wind. As it goes back and forth, the wind direction just keeps flip-flopping back and forth, and so does our smoke forecast.
Well, yeah, and that's why. I mean, ahead of these fronts, we get into a southwest wind. Then behind the fronts, we get into a northerly wind, and then it goes back and forth. So there you go. So every time the fronts are coming through, the smoke from the fire up by Sheridan and the fire out in western Wyoming, that smoke goes right back into central and southern Wyoming again. Then it goes back up north. So not only are we getting whiplash with temperature, but we're getting whiplash with the smoke.
Okay. Oh, but other than that, it looks like a really nice weekend coming up.
Well, there you go, because there is nothing coming our way of any consequence. And it's going to be that way for probably another week. I think next weekend we'll have something a little different, but I think it's going to have to wait till 17th or 18th of the month.
I hope so, because Don, you sound really bored right now, and that's not good.
I'm going to go on strike. I've got to make some demands for changing weather.
Change weather. All right, thank you, Don. Don Day with day weather. Yeah, it's not good when Don is just begging for something to happen. He's got nothing to do in his office all day long. Off we go to Frank Gambino. So, okay, you did mention baseball. We're into the playoffs?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
There are teams that haven't been there in a while, which is kind of refreshing. Okay. And they're winning, which is even more refreshing.
Nice, okay.
Some of them have low payrolls, and that's even more refreshing.
More refreshing. Okay, let's toss this out there, because I know it's way too early to say, but this early in the playoffs, your prediction is who's going to be the final two?
I think the Los Angeles Dodgers in the National League, and I'm going to take. You know what? I'm going to take the Cleveland Guardians. They used to be the Indians. Now they're the Guardians.
Okay. No, what I was about to say, I've never heard of these people, but they were the Indians that I would have heard of.
Yeah. Now they're the Guardians. You know, I don't want the New York Yankees to win any more games than they have to, and I don't really want the New York Mets to win any more games than they have to. So we're just going to scratch them off.
Frank, I've explained this before. It has nothing to do with what you want. It's
really?
Yes. I'm sorry. What Frank wants.
Okay. I'm still taking the Dodgers and the Cleveland Indians. I mean, the Guardians.
Gosh, I noticed that you didn't mention the Rockies anywhere.
Well, no, you know what? Guess what?
Yeah.
They did actually improve from a year ago.
Oh, really?
So last year, they lost 103 games.
Okay.
This year, they lost 101.
Wow.
Ooh.
Okay. That's a huge improvement. Okay.
Yeah, because they did nothing to improve their team. Nothing.
So, do you see anything that's going to change for them? I mean, or are they going to be the same team next season?
You know what? They got to spend money in the right spots, which they have not figured that out yet. And they have to get their farm system to bring up talent that's, cheaper and more effective. I mean, they're in a division where the Dodgers are spending the most money out of anybody in baseball for their roster, the most. What are you going to do? You're just going to surrender? Whatever. But then again, as long as people keep coming, especially fans from the other teams, then they're going to be fine.
As long as you can sell overpriced hot dogs and beer, you're absolutely good.
And maybe selling the team to somebody with a little bit more brighter eyes may help too.
Well, I would say sell to someone who actually cares that the team wins, that has a passion for them, not someone who just wants to say I own a baseball team. Yeah. But they want to say that I own a winning team. That'd be a
That'd be refreshing, wouldn't it be? All right, and then girls high school volleyball from last night. Laramie in 4A, still the number one team there, defeated Cheyenne East 3-0. Cheyenne Central over Cheyenne South 3-0. Tonight, Central will take on Laramie. And our Wild Preps media coaches at Media Poll for volleyball. Laramie is still number one in 4A, followed by Kelly Walsh, Thunder Basin, Green River, and Sheridan. Douglas remains number one in 3A, followed by Cody, Wheatland, Powell, and Pinedale. Bighorn is remaining in number one in 2A, with Tongue River second, Wright third, Pine Bluffs fourth, and Sundance fifth. And Little Snake River leads the 1A ranks, followed by Cokeville, Southeast, Lingleport, Laramie, and Encampment. 4A high school football resumes on Friday. Now, first of all, Cheyenne South will forfeit their game this week against Campbell County. The Bison have won. They haven't won a game so far this year. They've gotten drilled in every game they've played, and now injuries are really piling up. They had 38 players on the team to start the season, but only 19 did practice this week, so they're going to skip this game and then play Laramie in 2 weeks. Also in 4A, the top-rated team is Sheridan, and they will be at Cheyenne Central. Cheyenne East will be in Casper to meet Kelly Walsh. Laramie will be in Casper to meet Natrona, and Thunder Basin with that long road trip to Sweetwater County to take on Rock Springs. In college, junior college soccer, the Casper College men, they are 8-4-1 after a 3-3 tie with Central Wyoming their last time out. The Casper College women, they are 7-2-3 after a 4-0 win over Central their last time out. Both the T-Bird men and women will host Gillette College on Saturday. The LCCC men's soccer team 8-2 after an 8-0 win over Trinidad, and the LCCC women beat Trinidad 9-0. So they're 6-4-2 so far on the season, and both of the Golden Eagle teams will host Western Nebraska on Saturday. And in the baseball playoffs, the Detroit Tigers, who have making their first appearance in the playoffs since 2014, eliminated Houston in that wild card round 2-0 with a 5-2 win. And the Astros from Houston have made the American League Championship Series 7 years in a row. Kansas City, who had not made the playoffs in 9 years, beat Baltimore 2-1 to win that series 2-0. So Detroit will play Cleveland in the next round. Kansas City will play the New York Yankees in the next round in the American League. In the National League, San Diego played red-hot baseball after the All-Star break, eliminated Atlanta in 2 games, 5-4. So the Padres will take on the Los Angeles Dodgers in the next round. And Milwaukee staved off elimination, beating the New York Mets 5-3 with 3 runs in the 8th inning. And the deciding game of that 3-game series will be tonight. And well, that's it in sports.
Okay, just curious question for you. Are there teams that have been around for a while that have never been in the playoffs?
Oh, never been in the playoffs?
Yes.
There's probably a few.
Okay.
I mean, and some of these teams have not been in the World Series in forever.
Okay.
I mean, forever.
Okay.
So I like it when teams kind of emerge, especially when they've been bad for so long, and say, you know what, we can figure this out. It takes time. Nothing is overnight in sports, even with all the money. You can figure it out.
Everybody wants their team to go all the way at least a couple of times.
In their lifetime.
Yeah.
And I'll say that because I'm a Cubs fan. The last time they were in the World Series, it was like, the last time they won the World Series was like 108 years.
Yes, not your lifetime, in other words.
They only won it once.
Six the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. It's a Thursday. And unless you're in a really smoky part of Wyoming, I swear I can see the weekend from here. Hang on a second there. This happens now and then. Okay, gonna click that button. I hate that. See, that was the perfect lead-in. And I swear I can see the weekend from here.
Today's show is sponsored by the Reversible Bidet. It's refreshing for both ends. Soothing menthol.
Well, maybe the menthol sounds attractive. The most dangerous portion of this program every single day is right now open phones.
Warning. Wake Up Wyoming is about to enter daily open phones. This means that anyone will be allowed to call in and talk about anything. I mean, imagine if we actually allowed you on air to say anything you wanted. Scary, right? Well, we're just that brand of crazy. If you are offended by what other people think, then maybe you want to tune out right about now. Just saying. If you should choose to call, just remember, the more funny and interesting you are, the longer Glenn will keep you on the line. Obnoxious jerks will be hung up on. Dave, all right, strap in, and let's do this thing.
888-97 was the phone number, 888-97-WOODS. Okay, so yesterday Greg from Laramie called in, and we got into another one of our heated debates. Now, some of you folks do ask why I allow Greg to airtime like that. Greg is not like Dave from San Francisco. Dave calls, and he's just an obnoxious jerk. Greg and I disagree on everything, but at least Greg is willing to listen to a program like this and call in and engage in debate, which is why I don't want to be nothing but an echo chamber. Having said that, though, Mark Murphy called. He would like to invite Greg up to the studios here. And once Greg arrives, Mark will pay me $10,000 to punch Greg in the face. Okay. Now, I got a question for you, though, Mark. Do I have to split that money with Greg? Because Greg is the one getting punched in the face. Or is the money just all mine? Because if the money is all mine, I mean, that's actually kind of tempting there, but just so you know. And for those people who do complain whenever Greg calls in, once again, the reason that I allow him on is because I don't want to be an echo chamber. I do think we should hear what other people are saying. It makes us think. It sharpens our skills as debaters and so on, and it's critical thinking for all of us. So, yeah, listen to what other people think, whether you like it or not. Don't just get engaged and tune out. Tolerate it. Put up with it. Don't be like them, in other words. Don't be cancel culture. Listen and engage. Okay, unless they're a jerk like Dave in San Francisco, then don't worry about it. All right, this next topic is completely out of left field. No pun intended with Dave there, or Greg for that matter. Ladies and gentlemen, we haven't talked about it in a long time. I'm going to take you to North Korea.
I'm so lonely, so lonely, so lonely inside real alone. There's no one, just me only, sitting on my rental throne. I work really hard and make up great plans, but nobody listens, no one understands. Seems like no one takes me seriously.
Here comes the high note. Nailed it.
And so,
oh, he's going to cry. Oh, the little tub of lard's going to cry.
A little lonely. Poor
little me. Okay, I bring this up because, remember, there's only one fat man in North Korea. Story says, for the first time in a long time, it seems as if nearly every story we've heard about alleged unauthorized border crossings on the Korean peninsula had one thing in common. They involved people leaving North Korea by any means necessary to get to South Korea. But recently, we've seen a handful of stories where the opposite is true. There was an American soldier who legally crossed into the North. Now, he was charged with desertion. He was wanted, by the way. He was going to be arrested, essentially, is what was going on. And so he thought, I would rather go to North Korea. Well, that's worse than being arrested and thrown into a South Korean prison or an American jail, but he did it. Moron. A person described as a North Korean defector stole a bus earlier this week and rammed into a barricade separating the two countries. The man was detained. A few other details are being provided. But this raises the question, why would anyone else want to break into North Korea? Well, a North Korean defector living in South Korea was detained Tuesday after ramming a stolen bus into a barricade on a bridge near the heavily militarized border in an apparent attempt to get back into his country. The incident took place around 1:30 a.m. their time at the Tongol Bridge, I think is how you pronounce it, northwest of the capital of Seoul. After the man ignored warnings, soldiers and so on, him attempted to drive through. And again, police jumped on him and pulled him out of the bus and asked basically, hell's wrong with you? Why would you want to go back there? The unusual nature of this attempted defection shouldn't be understated. According to the Seoul Unification Ministry in 2012, more than 24,000 people have fled to the south from the north. By comparison, they can only confirm about 30 traveling in the opposite direction. So has something changed? Do people look at this as an attractive place to live? If they do, then they don't really know what happens inside North Korea. They honestly don't know. Seems unlikely, seems extreme. North Korea remains, the story says, it's called the Hermit Kingdom, a nation held up in an iron grip of the Kim family. Terrible place to live. You should see the concentration camps. I mean, starvation, etc. Remember, again, there's only one fat man in North Korea. According to South Korean officials, the reasons remain complicated. Some people, no doubt, simply worry about family members and they want to go rescue them. Others simply have a difficult time adapting to life in the well, and this is a part of the problem. They live in North Korea where their entire lives are run by the government. Yes, they're starving, but they are living their entire lives being told what to do, where to live, how to think, et cetera, et cetera. They get into a free country and everything's on them. There's the thing about living in a free country. That's a lot of responsibility to live in a free country. You're going to have to go out and get a job and work hard to make it, and you're going to make mistakes, and it's a hard struggle, and you got to think for yourself. Some people can't do that. And so they would rather be thrown back. It's like the guy, and we've seen this from time to time here in America, somebody will commit a crime in order to get thrown into prison so they can get taken care of. That actually happens. Story here says many of those questions might eventually have been answered if the long-term cooling of diplomatic tensions had been achieved, something Donald Trump actually did. But North Korea is now fully engaged in partnering with the new axis of evil, and we know that when we take a look at what's happening in Ukraine and places like that. Jay and Casper. Greg seems to be obsessed with hurtful words than considering actions. Well, I tell you what, next time I have Greg on, I will talk to him about that, Jay. In the meantime, it's not to say that a flood of people are trying to get into North Korea. That's not the case. It's like when I grew up, you know me again, South Florida, right, Southwest Florida. And the flood of people that came my entire life came from Cuba to the United States, especially to try to land in Key West, places like that. That was happening the whole time I was a kid. So many people leaving Cuba by any means necessary, whatever kind of raft or whatever they could make. They would try to defect and go to Key West. It was a big problem when I was a kid. We rarely ever saw anyone trying to go to Cuba. If they did, it's usually that they were in trouble with the law here in the United States. And so they were trying to go anywhere else where they wouldn't be arrested. And they're thinking, Cuba would be better. It's not better. It's worse. It's a worse kind of a prison. Unless you're talking about an idiot like Michael Moore, who in his movie Sicko about the healthcare system in America actually took a bunch of people by boat to Cuba because he thought Cuban healthcare was among the best in the world. But then again, Michael Moore is the moron. He's even more of a moron since his name is Michael Moore. But, you know, the good news is, there's only one fat man in North Korea, and that should tell you something right there. If there's at least a few more people trying to defect and go north, maybe he might actually get a friend or two.
I'm so lonely, so lonely, so lonely inside real.
Polish off that tin hat. You'll need it for this one. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods. Available on demand on the Wake Up Wyoming app.
I'm so happy to be here. Yeah. I'm just happy to be here. Still I know the world's on fire. The situation's dire. A lot of work and courage gonna be required, but I'm just happy to be here.
821's the time. 888-97 Woods the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. I'm pulling out some stories that are not the same old thing. This is stuff that's been piling up here and I've been wanting to get to. If you want to interrupt and talk about something you want to talk about, 888-97 Woods the phone number, 888-97-WOODS. Or like a lot of people are doing here, they download the Wake Up Wyoming app, which is free, by the way. Just you pick up your phone, App Store, Wake Up Wyoming, there it is. And one of the many things you can do with it, besides listening to old shows, when you want to, for free, hit the chat option and send me text messages. There are loads of people who do that. And I answer back both on and off the air. And it keeps the whole conversation going across the state. All right, so as you know, since I'm mentioning phones, the big thing today is so many people walking around with their face in the phone or the phone in their face, either way, and they're not really looking where they're going. They're bumping into things. It can be hysterical sometimes. And wouldn't it be great if people were to put down those phones and communicate with each other once in a while? What would we do without the phones, right? All right. That's even been a problem in schools. Headline, what about phone breaks in class? The 60-second solution they think might boost grades. Because, look, we have a generation of young people who grew up with that device in their hand. Now, in defense of that device, because I use it all the time, for work and many other things, it all depends on what you want to do with it. When you think of Star Trek, Spock wished he had that rather than a tricorder. Wished he had one of today's phones rather than a tricorder. There's so many things it could do. This morning I stepped outside and I looked up. Of course, you know, it's 1:45 a.m. And I'm stepping out of my house and heading to the car. And I look up and I go, oh, wow, what's that up there? Beautiful stars. And I know a couple of them are planets. And I touch an app on my phone that I downloaded. And I hold my phone up. And it shows me what I'm looking at. That was Jupiter. I kind of figured it was. So interesting that I can just move my phone around at the sky at night, and it tells me what I'm looking at by showing visually, you know, by pointing to things and telling me the names of them and the constellations and stuff like that. Well, so many things. If you see me looking at my phone, working on the phone, I might be communicating with family and friends, or there's news, there's sports, there's weather. There's so many things we can do on those devices, which is why people are using them like crazy. But a younger generation that grew up with those suckers in their hands, wouldn't you like to at least pull it out of their hands for a while? Now, for me, there are times friends will complain they're trying to get a hold of me and my phone is off, or at least do not disturb is on, right? And that's because there's times I'm working on things and I don't want to be disturbed, so I put on do not disturb and I get to work and I put the phone down. Like right now while I'm doing this show, I don't have the phone in my hand. It's behind me in this briefcase thing, kind of a thing, that I bring to work every single day. And there it sits until I'm off the air and done with all of my work. Then I can go ahead and turn it back on. But what do you do with kids who are raised with that sucker in their hand? I think kids should have them for a lot of reasons, not just communicating with their parents. It can be a safety thing, too. And that's the way technology is today. Here's the story. The war on classroom phone use has a new strategy. Surrender, but only for a minute. A recent study revealed that allowing students a brief scheduled period to check their phone during lectures may actually reduce overall usage and lead to higher grades. In an era, the story says, where smartphones are ubiquitous, and that is, I think, the first time in many years, it's been decades since I've used ubiquitous, especially on the air. Educators face a growing challenge, how to keep students engaged in the classroom when digital distractions are just a tap away. The recent study published in Frontiers in Education offers a potential solution that doesn't involve confiscating phones or imposing strict bans. Instead, it suggests giving students a periodic technology break. Go ahead, check your messages, and then put the phones back down and eyes to the front of the class. Led by a professor at Southern Illinois University, researchers implemented the strategy in an ungraduated critical thinking course over 22 class periods. They compared the effects of technology breaks to question breaks, where students could ask the professor questions about the lectured material instead of using their phones. Quote, we showed that technology breaks may be helpful in reducing overall phone usage in the classroom. To our knowledge, this is the first evaluation. So what they're saying, and I'm just thinking out loud about it. You tell me what, but I'm just thinking out loud. So for some people, because they have that device all day long, it nags at them. Because they're constantly using it, it nags at them. And they want to check because in the back of their mind, their phone is nagging at them. So now they're not paying attention to what the teacher is saying because they're really curious about what's happening. They want to check their social media and et cetera, et cetera. So why not just give them a moment to do it so it settles that nagging sensation? Then they can get their focus back on work. In some cases, I can see that might work. However, during a technology break session, the professor or teacher in high school, whichever, would announce the beginning of the class that students would have a brief period to use their phones freely. Then the break is over. And they could schedule 2 to 4 minutes, something like that. During the question and answer session, they would have a similar break. Phones are discouraged, but now you can go ahead and just ask your professor anything. The results were promising. On average, when technology breaks were implemented, students used their phones less frequently throughout the class and throughout the day because it satisfied that nagging curiosity. What's going on? Interestingly, the 1-minute technology break seemed to be most effective, just 1 minute. Again, just check in, get back to me in class. Quote, our hope is that students were less distracted during lectures, they said. One possibility is that 1 minute is enough to read and send several messages for some of these people. Researchers noticed a high variability in phone usage among the session, making it difficult to draw. Well, of course, different people are addicted in different ways. Yeah, well, some people are really addicted to these phones and other people are not. For me, of course, I didn't grow up with the phone, but for me, I just go ahead and, again, I don't want to be distracted by this right now. I put it away. And when I'm ready to get back to it, I will. But it's a little harder, I guess, for someone who grew up with it. All right, think about that. Get back to me on it. We're coming up on local news, update on your weather forecast, and then 888-97-WOODS. That's 888-97-WOODS. I got other things to talk about. You can talk about that or whatever you want because it is open phones right now. Let's Wake Up Wyoming.
40. When you need to know quicker than the morning paper or the 5 o'clock news, you need Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods. Mornings on K2 Radio.
6 at the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. 888-97 was the phone number. 888-97-WOODS. Oh, your Wyoming Congresswoman Harriet Hageman is scheduled to be on at 9:06. So, if you had anything you wanted me to ask her, legit stuff, don't let your mind go too wild. I'll take some weird stuff, too. It just depends on what you got. Send it to me now. Just text it over the Wake Up Wyoming app, and I'll go ahead and toss out some of those questions there. But again, 9:06 is when Harriet Hageman is going to be on for a few minutes. And there's a list of things she wanted to talk about, and we'll get to that. All right. In the meantime, you can interrupt me, change the subject if you want, at 888-97-WOODS or by texting me on the Wake Up Wyoming app. What I'm trying to do is go through some of the other stories that are not making big-time news, but you should hear about. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, we are living in the end times.
So put on your respirator and let's fix that generator. And while we're out, we'll mend our fences too. See, I'm not afraid of dying, just got reasons for surviving. I want one more day in the apocalypse with you.
Couple of stories along that line. Let me see. It's been a bad week for lithium-ion batteries. Now, I told you about this before the hurricane scraped up the coast of Florida. There was a story out there saying, well, this is going to be bad news because when salt water gets into those electric cars, they can catch fire. Now, if the electric car didn't catch fire and burn down the house just because it was sitting in the garage, then if you see it just sitting there, oh, okay, so it survived the storm. Don't get in and just start it up because it could start on fire then. And once one of those suckers gets going on fire, they're just about impossible to put out. So the story in front of me says there are some lessons to be learned here, but we become so dependent on these things. I think the author says probably breathing deeply out to figure out how to deal with the problem we have with these batteries. A tractor-trailer carrying a large lithium-ion battery overturned and caught fire on a highway Port Los Angeles on Thursday, startling traffic and leading to road closures. Now, here's the deal. If a tractor-trailer hauling petroleum tips over and catches on fire, typically what they do is they cordon off the area and let it burn out. And it's difficult to put that out, but it doesn't last very long. It would be a lot better if we had more pipelines to transport that stuff rather than. But if that's the case, they just wait till it burns out, and it does, and it doesn't take long. But if a truckload of lithium-ion batteries goes, oh, my God. Can you imagine if a truckload, and I've seen some memes on this, a truckload of Mentos mints collided with a Coca-Cola truck? I mean, it would probably take out a whole 30 miles. But anyway, in the Los Angeles Fire Department said in a statement Thursday that the fire was expected to burn for at least 48 hours and that roughly a 7-mile stretch of California Route 47 would be closed during that period. The Port of Los Angeles, the busiest port in the Western Hemisphere, until the strike anyway, said that several terminals have had to stay closed. Wow, it really has been a bad, and there's a lot of pictures of this incident here. Then Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida urged EV owners this week to get their vehicles to higher ground before the hurricane arrived, although the problem is rare it has happened. Salt water gets into the batteries, and there you go. And several homes did burn down because of that. Now, next story up while I'm talking about this. This irritates me like you wouldn't believe. The American Legislative Exchange Council, ALEC. What that is you've heard some local, even here in Wyoming, some local city councils will use ALEC. So somebody writes what they think is a good ordinance for their town, a good piece of legislation even for the House and Senate. And if it is good, they think they'll share it on ALEC so other governments, city and county and state governments, can get a look at the same legislation. Well, maybe we should adopt that. So there's a draft model legislation which the bill has as a common sense energy agenda for the future. This gets back to where I would say, please, government, get out of energy. Government should not be involved in energy. That should be the private market. The Affordable, Reliable, and Clean Energy Security Act states, energy security is paramount to economic growth. Well, duh. Energy security that is affordable, reliable, and clean. So far, I don't disagree with that. And by the way, yes, you can burn coal cleanly. It leads to prosperity for families and communities. Well, sounds good so far. The legislation was drafted by ALEC's Energy and Environmental and Agricultural Task Force. According to ALEC, members submitted draft model policies discussed, debated, and voted on by ALEC members, policies that received final approval by legislators. The model policy is then disseminated to policymakers across the country to see if they want to adopt it. So the energy security, et cetera, sections, the first call for energy security declared that fuel sources must be primarily produced domestically in the United States and that infrastructure necessary to deliver the energy to the customer must minimize reliance on foreign manufacturing. Now, again, so far, don't disagree. The best way to do that is get government out of the way. But moving on. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, the United States imported roughly 8.51 million barrels of petroleum per day, 76% of which crude oil. Some 52% of petroleum imports to the United States came from Canada, with another 11% coming from Mexico, 5% from Saudi Arabia, 4% from Iraq, 3% from Brazil, which, by the way, that might throw some people. We primarily get most of our petroleum from Canada and Mexico, not Middle Eastern countries, not here in America anyway. The second section, affordability for the energy sources, have a stable and predictable cost cost-effective, less expensive, more reliable. Well, if that's what they want, then get out of the way and let coal and natural gas and petroleum reign in America, because that's affordable and reliable. All right. Third section covered reliability and established that for energy sources to be considered reliable, it must be readily available to meet energy demands 24/7. Oh, so you don't mean wind and solar. And when used for generation of power, it must have a minimum capacity factor of 50%. So in other words, if they're generating energy and suddenly we're getting into wintertime, it gets way cold, you got to be able to crank that puppy up by 50% more, which you can't do with wind and solar. I wonder if they're listening to themselves as they put out this piece of legislation for other states and cities and so on to consider. Must be capable of dispatchable electric output at any time to ramp up or down electricity generation within the hour. Now, again, you're not talking wind and solar then, are you? The fourth section declares that energy sources must be clean. It defines green energy as a source that either reduces air pollutants, or is generated by nuclear reactors or by natural gas. And remember, as we talk about air pollutants, CO2 is not a pollutant. Energy costs have significantly risen under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris administration, says the story. Heartland Institute says Biden energy policy says upward, and it talks about your costs going up depending on where you are. 23% up to 52%, depends on where you are and what kind of power we're talking about. So Cameron Shortley, executive director of the Heartland Institute, says it's important that state lawmakers are well versed in the challenges for the electrical grid, which I would say is the case. So I would like to see, now that this has been put out there, I would like to see if, and I don't expect much from our current crop of politicians at any level in politics, but I'd like them to read that and really consider what is reliable, what is affordable, et cetera, because it's not going to be your wind and solar. Especially if you want it to be dispatchable. In other words, we need more now. Crank it up, there it is. Can't do that with wind turbines or solar. 846, wake up.
This show contains sarcasm that some listeners may find disturbing. A sense of humor is advised. Chat with Glenn live on the Wake Up Wyoming app.
8:49 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Off to the icebox we go. Frank Gambino waiting by. Frank, 'tis the season for people to put stuff in their front yards that is questionable.
Well, There was one of the giant skeletons, the 12-foot one, that wanted to beat the crap out of this other little skeleton.
Yes, I saw that, yeah.
I'm like, you can't do that.
Now, there's one I see. I'm looking at a picture. The guy made a flying saucer, and it looks good. I mean, it really looks good. And it's in his front yard at an angle as if it just crashed into his yard with even a bunch of sod over the top as if it buried into the ground. And there's a alien laying out in front of it like it's out cold.
Oh.
I don't know if it's dead or not. Now, my only argument to people who do stuff like this, well, first off, I greatly admire you and thank you for all the work that you do. Could you do that sometime, at any other time during the year when people are not expecting it?
Well, but tis the season for this.
Yeah, well, it's true. No, it's true. It's true. But isn't it more fun imagine you're driving to work and somebody's got a crashed alien spacecraft?
Oh, like in the middle of the summer?
Yes. And there's no explanation, and it doesn't stay there long. It's there for the morning, and it's gone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That gets you talking. There was one guy, and I really admire this. On the side of a country road somewhere in the south, there was a wreck that happened, and it was a cement truck. Well, the cement truck was empty, but still the part that keeps the cement, that thing that turns with the cement.
Yeah.
Okay, it was left in the ditch. Oh. So he went and painted it like a space capsule.
Well, that's about the size of that,
Yes, and people started pulling over wondering what the hell space capsule crashed. You see what I'm saying, Frank?
Yeah. You're inventing your own tourist spot. Our YO Preps volleyball poll is out for this week. In 4A, Laramie remains number 1, Kelly Walsh 2, Thunder Basin 3, Green River 4, and Sheridan 5. Douglas remains number 1 team in 3A with Cody 2nd, Wheatland 3rd, Powell 4th, and Pinedale 5th. In 2A, Bighorn remains number 1, and their neighbor Tongue River right behind them and in 2nd. Wright 3rd, Pine Bluffs 4th, and Sundance 5th. Little Snake River leads the 1A ranks, followed by Cokeville, Southeast, Linglefort, Laramie, and Encampment. High school volleyball from last night in 4A, Laramie over Cheyenne East, 3-0. Cheyenne Central beats South 3-0. Central and Laramie will play later on tonight. In high school football in 4A, Cheyenne South will forfeit their game this week against Campbell County. The Bison have not won a game so far this year. They have lost big in all of their games so far this year, and now they have injuries piling up. They only had 19 guys practice out of 38 this week, so they said, all right, we're going to scratch this week and return to play not this week, but next week against Laramie. Cheyenne Central will host Sheridan on Friday. Cheyenne East and Casper to meet Kelly Walsh on Friday night. Laramie also in Casper to meet Natrona, and Thunder Basin with that long road trip over to Rock Springs to take on the Tigers. In Major League Baseball, the playoffs are underway. In the American League, Detroit beat Houston 5-2, so Detroit won that best-of-3 series 2-0. They were last in the playoffs in 2014, and Houston made 7 straight appearances in the American League Championship Series, so now the Tigers will play Cleveland in the next round. Kansas City, who is making their first playoff appearance in 9 years in the American League, beat Baltimore 2-1, and it was a 1-0 game in the first game of the series, so the Royals move on to take on the New York Yankees in the next round. In the National League, San Diego beat Atlanta 5-4 to eliminate the Braves. San Diego played great after the All-Star break. They were 45-19, so they match up with the Los Angeles Dodgers in round 2. And the Milwaukee Brewers staved off elimination, beating the New York Mets 5-3 with 3 runs in the 8th inning. The Brewers and the Mets, that series is tied at 1 game apiece, and the deciding game will be tonight. In college soccer at the junior college level, the Casper College men's team, they are 8-4-1 after a 3-3 tie with Central Wyoming over their last time out. And the Casper College women, they beat Central Wyoming 4-0, so they are 7-2-3. Both the T-Bird men and women will host Gillette College on Saturday. The LCCC men's soccer team from Cheyenne 8-2 after an 8-0 win over Trinidad, and the LCCC women's team 6-4-2 after a 9-0 win over Trinidad. And both the Golden Eagle men and women will host Western Nebraska coming up on Saturday.
Boy, we get into the finals here for baseball. There's a lot that people have to invest in keeping up with all of this.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, you gotta, sometimes you have to have 2 or 3 TVs if you want to watch them all.
Yeah. And it's not like, I've never seen, maybe I'm wrong here, I've never seen anyone do the brackets like they do in basketball.
No, it's not like that. No,
okay.
No. Which is good.
Okay.
Baseball kind of operates on its own little thing there, you know, which is fine. We don't need any brackets like that. No.
Thank you, Frank. If all goes well, your Congresswoman Harriet Hageman would join us 8:06 this morning. 888-97 Woods, the phone number. Wake up, Wyoming. 9:06 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. My name is Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me. It's a Thursday, which means I swear I can see the weekend from here.
Today's show is sponsored by banana-scented nose hair clippers. Clipping your nose hair never smelled so good.
And now in peach flavor, too. Off we go to talk to your Wyoming Congresswoman Harriet Hageman, who has a whole list of topics. Morning, I hope you've been well. How's Washington, D.C. treating you?
Well, good. I'm back in Wyoming. We finished last week, and we are now back in district, or in my case, back in the state, until after the election.
Okay. Now, speaking of after the election, we don't have very long to go. A lot needs to happen in a very short period of time.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. So I actually have been campaigning for some other people as well, trying to make sure that we can hold on to the House, and also getting around the state of Wyoming as much as possible.
Okay. How does it look for the House of Representatives? How does that look? Because right now, it's a slim majority for the Republicans.
It is a slim majority, and I do believe that the Republicans are going to hold on to the House. We have some really good candidates that are running, And I think that as people get more and more and more exposed to the top of the Democrat ticket, I think they're going to say, not only do we not want her and him, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, but I think they're also going to say some of these people running for Congress are just absolute radicals, and they are.
All right. Well, again, it's just a very short period of time for people to make up their minds, which is often the time that I notice a lot of people who never pay attention to politics will be paying attention in the next 30 days or so. So this is really the time to capture their attention. Let's head to the state of Wyoming. I know you wanted to talk about the Bureau of Land Management and their Western Solar Plant. Now, for those who don't know, what is that?
So what the BLM is doing is they're attempting to destroy our traditional energy industries, and along with it, they're attempting to destroy our affordable and reliable energy and replace it with constructing solar panels and wind farms across all of our federal lands. So this is yet another effort at pushing through the Green New Deal that, number one, is unaffordable, but number two, our entire economy, our existence, our prosperity is dependent upon affordable and reliable energy. And what they're doing, and you see this with the Rock Springs RMP and you see it with the Buffalo RMP, they're attempting to stop mining, oil and gas development, livestock grazing, and they want to just cover these lands with solar panels. It isn't feasible. You're going to have to mine every square inch of the earth in order to produce the minerals that are necessary to produce these things. You've got the challenges associated with the batteries. I mean, look at what just happened down in the southeastern part of the United States. The number of EVs that are exploding and catching on fire because of saltwater encroachment ought to be scaring everybody.
Right. Here's a thought I had for you. I saw this picture and someone wrote it into a meme, and I hadn't thought about this before. Let's head up to the Carolinas real quick. And places that have been hard hit up in the mountains by all of that rain they got, and whole towns wiped out. Now you see the equipment going in, and this is heavy equipment to move soil, to unbury the towns, to put the power lines back up. All of that heavy equipment going in there, and not one of them is battery powered. And there's a reason for that. In part because there is no electricity up there to run all of this equipment. Let's just start with that. You're going to have to bring a bunch of diesel equipment in order to do this. So think about that when it comes to the next disaster, which there will always be the next one. You can't solve the problem with battery-powered vehicles when the electricity's out. Just keep that in mind. But let's also, as you fight this, and I'm glad that you are, let's also keep in mind we got the problem of taking up that much land and doing that much harm to the environment. So for those people who really want to protect the environment, how can they say that they're doing that when they're taking up so much land?
One of the things that's so stunning to me is we can produce a lot of things in this country, and we're very good at it. The reserves we have in terms of oil and natural gas and coal are literally off the charts in terms of our ability to be able to produce those into the long-distance future. Here's the irony about all of this. The unit of energy produced from oil and gas per unit of land as compared to the unit of energy produced per unit of land for solar or wind, they're not even comparable. We just had a hearing last week. Puerto Rico is still suffering from the hurricane that hit in 2017. Their electrical infrastructure and grid is still collapsed in many places. They have serious challenges. And this administration is trying to force them into the solar and wind side of things rather than rebuilding their coal and oil and gas-powered power plants. Well, here's the irony. They're an island. They're landlocked. They're land limited. It takes 10 times more land to produce the same unit of energy from solar as it does from traditional oil and gas. And the one thing we're not producing is more land. We can produce more oil and gas. We can produce more coal. We're not building more land. It's not possible. The amount of land that is necessary to produce even one unit of energy is just astronomical. Right. And that is a cost that this administration and the enviros absolutely ignore.
I also worry about bird kills, bat kills, and, of course, in Wyoming, migration corridors. Have you heard anything about a leasing ban for coal in our area?
Well, sure. The Buffalo RMP that was issued about 6 weeks ago, maybe 2 months ago, the Buffalo RMP specifically states that they will be banning and prohibiting all coal production, all coal mining in the Powder River Basin beginning in 2041. Now, you notice that whenever these administrators and regulators do something that's stupid, they always make sure it goes into effect after they've long expired, after their involvement in government is long expired, so they're not the ones that are blamed for it. Can you imagine that we stop all coal mining in 15 years? Our grid can't handle it. We don't have the feasibility to do that. It's the most affordable energy that we have. They know that. We know that. And yet the Buffalo RMP actually stops all coal mining in the Powder River Basin in less than 15 years. Well, what that means is they're not going to be leasing now. So it isn't something that happens actually 15 years down the road. It creates serious supply chain issues and certainty issues and stability issues. It affects our economy. It starts affecting us right now when they adopt these absolutely ridiculous propositions. I would also say there is absolutely no way that the BLM would have the legal authority to literally destroy the economy of the United States with no congressional input whatsoever. The BLM does not have the legal authority to ban all coal mining. It violates the Surface Mining Act. It violates NEPA. It violates all kinds of laws. But that's just how rogue this administration is. They don't care whether they comply with the law or not. They're bound and determined to destroy our economy by destroying our energy industries.
I'm talking to your Wyoming Congresswoman, Harriet Hageman. So, Harry, I'm going to tell you something that I do, which is just, it's kind of geeky of me. But now and then when you and I talk, I hand you a little tidbit, and then the next time you go into some tirade during one of those hearings and it gets posted on YouTube by Forbes, I wait to see if you picked up what I said and used it. So I'm going to give you another round for your revolver, okay? So those people who want to keep coal and petroleum in the ground, if you take a look at the way solar panels are made, they have to use petroleum, and they are in part made with coal. Without the use of coal, it is impossible to make a solar panel. It's part of what creates its ability to make electricity out of sunlight. So if they want to keep it all in the ground, how are they going to make solar panels?
So this is something that I talk about quite a bit, because that is what is so absolutely absurd about this. You cannot produce steel without coal. Now, it's metallurgical coal, but still, you cannot produce steel without coal. But you can't produce cement without coal.
Right.
You can't produce. Did you see that? I think it was in Kansas where they're putting in a big solar panel factory, and they were getting ready to shut down their gas-fired power plant, their coal-fired power plant there. And they said, well, you can't do that because the only way we can produce the solar panels is if we have that type of electricity. That's the only electricity that could run this plant. So that's the thing. That is one of the things that is so ironic about this, is that try to manufacture a medical device without a petroleum product.
Yeah. Slightly different, in the time we have left, slightly different topic here. I noticed that when it came to the continuing resolution, which, by the way, drives me absolutely nuts, that Congress just keeps going with continuing resolutions and our debt continues to skyrocket because of it. So your counterparts of your Wyoming trio in the Senate both voted yes on the continuing resolution, but you voted no. And why was that?
Well, I voted against everyone so far for the very reason that you said. All we keep doing is kicking the can down the road and acting like we're solving problems. The way that Congress gets a hold of these rogue agencies and starts actually legislating again is through the power of the purse. At a continuing resolution, it just continues to fund these agencies and these programs at the exact same level that we are funding them right now. We are ultimately going to have to dramatically cut the federal government, the size and scope and spending of the federal government. We don't have any choice. Doing continuing resolutions is not the way to run a government. So right now, the House of Representatives has passed 5 appropriation bills that together would fund 72% of the government. The Senate refuses to take them up because they like continuing resolutions, because then it shoves us into, at the end of the year, an omnibus spending bill that not only will keep funding at least the same level, oftentimes dramatically increases it, and then you end up with really horrible policies in the omnibus spending bill like the Sustains Act that nobody even knows what it is. So that's the problem with this, is that this form, this mechanism, this way of funding our government is fundamentally flawed. It is not sustainable, and we have to stop doing this.
All right. You're Wyoming Congresswoman Harriet Hageman. Anytime you want to come on, please give us a call.
Thanks so much. Good to visit with you.
918 Wake Up Wyoming.
And we're back. Sorry, we were busy tricking pescatarians into eating Rocky Mountain oysters. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods.
9:23 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. I'm going to be running down to Cheyenne again. I got another Thankful Thursday to do, and I always host that. It's where we go to raise money for a Wyoming charity, and I do mean this honestly. Wyoming is about the most giving place I've ever lived in my entire life, if not just flat out the most. So we have these events. Cheyenne has them, Casper has them. I host the one with Alf in Cheyenne, and we raise money for a different charity every single week. So earlier this morning, Alf sent me this message.
Good morning, Cheyenne. Here we are ready for another Thankful Thursday, and we are excited for this one. We have the Cheyenne Frontier Days, Old West Museum, Riley and Amanda. Hey, this is our 3rd year. We are excited. We're going to be at the Lincoln Way Event Hall, 3839 East Lincoln Way. Come on out and join the fun. Now, doors are going to open at 4 o'clock. Now, Amanda, I'm going to start with you. This is our 3rd year, as I said. Cheyenne Frontier Days, Old West Museum. Why do we need to raise money for you guys? I mean, you guys got all kinds of money, people think.
So people think that we're a part of Cheyenne Frontier Days, but we are actually a separate nonprofit. So this goes directly to our education, our exhibits, and just preserving the Western history.
And that means so much when people come to this town to visit. I know I see so many people going to that Old West Museum. Now, Riley, we were talking before we went on the air here. We're going to have live auction. We're going to have guns. We're going to have food. We're going to have it all. Let's start with the food. Now, if you're just getting off work, you don't need to go home and make something to eat. What are we going to have for food tonight?
We're going to have sloppy joes for dinner tonight. So
I
we're
like
really excited.
it. Are you making them?
No, I am not making them.
Okay, you guys are lucky out there.
Yes,
all right. So now the sloppy joes, we're going to start serving that about 4 o'clock?
Yeah, 4 or 5.
4 or 5 o'clock. So you're getting off work, coming out and join us. Between 4 and 5 o'clock, we're going to have the card games. We're going to have 50-50 raffle going on. Now, the live auction is going to start at 6 o'clock. Can you tell me a couple of featured items in that live auction item?
Yeah, we're really excited this year. Actually, Chancey Williams was inducted into the Cheyenne Frontier Days Hall of Fame, and so while he was in town attending our event, he actually signed a guitar for us. So,
oh, wow!
Yeah.
Now, can they see that on your Facebook?
Yes, that is one of the things.
How would we see that? What's the Facebook?
It's Cheyenne Frontier Days Old West Museum.
Okay, so if you'd like to see that, go check that out.
Absolutely. So that's a really cool one. And then we have some other ones. Randy from Shoot 10 Mercantile has really stepped up, and he got us. Him and my mom partnered on a dog basket. That's really cute.
I seen that on Facebook.
Yeah, we're really excited about those. We have a whiskey bottle signed by Ned Ledoux. So we've got some really neat items. We have some stuff from the 100th Cheyenne Frontier Days. We have a whole basket with stuff from there. So we're just really excited.
All right, Amanda, it's all going to be at 3839 East Lincoln Way, right on the corner of Ridge Road and Lincoln Way. Now, the doors open at 4 o'clock. Like we said, we're going to be doing card games and everything. You said something about a punch box. Are we going to be doing that?
Yeah, so we got a punch box going on. We might even have enough for 2. So if you don't get there right at 4, there should hopefully still be some nice stuff. We got a bunch of gift cards. We even got some $50 gift cards in there, so you get some bang for your buck. You put 20 in, can get 50 out.
I like it. All right. So come on out and join us. Cheyenne Frontier Days, Old West Museum. It's going to be a great time tonight. You know, we go till about 9 or 9:30, so it's not a late night. Live auction starts at 6 o'clock, but as you all know, you can win $1,000 just for walking in the door, and it's absolutely free. Join us tonight for another Thankful Thursday.
And I'll be there starting I get there about 4 o'clock, and I'm there till about 6 for the whole thing, helping Alf out. All right, so I do have coming up in the next segment of the program, and I just want to know more about it, because I got to admit, I don't know a lot about this bill, though it might be dead on arrival. There is a tax amendment for your property taxes in the state of Wyoming, an idea that I talked to you guys yesterday about. Unfortunately, I think the idea is too complicated, and it turns out that some members of the Wyoming House and Senate that liked this idea the first time around, even though it didn't pass, don't like it so much the second time around. But it was another one of your ideas for a property tax solution, which many will be offered up in this next legislative session. So here we go again. So let's, and the legislative session, believe it or not, is not that far off. I know we still have an election and so on to get to, but the legislative session is not that far off. So I'll explain what I do know about this proposal, which I still think is dead on arrival. Plus, as I get more in, because there's other property tax proposals that are coming up, you're going to want to know about them, and so I'll make sure to pass on that information so you know what ones you might like or not like as they're offered up this next legislative session. Coming up on 9:30. Local news coming your way after local news update on your weather forecast, and you and I get back into it again. 888-97 Woods the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. By the way, you can talk about what I'm talking about. Change the subject, fine by me. I'll just kind of roll with it. Just Wake Up Wyoming.
It's Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods on AM 1030 K2 Radio. Join the show at 888-97-WOODS.
9:36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. So 888-97-WOODS, the phone number, 888-97-WOODS. Talk about what I'm talking about or change the subject. Real quick, I want to go to this one. Good article. Cowboy State Daily does a lot of good ones, and this particular article was written by Leo Wolfson, and it has to do with some property tax solutions. And there was one proposal, I know our friend Judy in Mills called about this. She was opposed to it. I am too, and I'll explain why. But the proposal to bring a constitutional amendment to the voters was passed by the legislator in 2023. So you're going to have a chance to look at this on the ballot when you go to vote in November. At the time, it received minimal pushback. It was passed through both chambers and was at relatively large majorities. It was seen by many as a viable solution for spiking property taxes that was happening, as you know, especially if you're paying them. One of those who supported it at the time was House Majority Floor Leader Chip Neiman, Republican Hewlett, who now says he's against it because it would simply result in an increase in the tax rate for commercial and all other properties out there. He said, quote, although I voted for it, I got some pretty serious buyer's remorse. It isn't going to make a difference if we don't control spending. We might be able to reduce residential rates, which is awesome, but it won't matter because we just shifted over, in other words, to businesses, for example. Cody resident Vince Montana, and that's a great name, by the way, is worried about the amendment potentially opening up a Pandora's box of unexpected consequences, such as the legislators raising residential property taxes rather than lowering them, as many people intended when it was passed in 2023. He said, I don't think we can look at this and assume we're going to lower property taxes. This constitutional amendment creates a Pandora's box. Whoever opens the box is going to get something good or something bad, definitely an unknown. So, okay, and it goes on to talk about some people who really did, and even the constitutionality of it, and they would have to, in order to pass this, pass a constitutional amendment. So there is some buyer's remorse there. Rose wants to talk about property taxes. Morning, Rose.
Good morning, Glenn.
Yes.
So I was at the county commissioner meeting on the 1st. If people want to watch that at the hour 23 mark, that was the start of public comment, and I testified and talked about this, and I'd like to read something real quick here because I'm out running errands. Constitutions were put in place to protect the people by limiting the government's power and protecting the rights of the citizens. The Constitution of the United States is the supreme law of the land and protects the rights of the citizens from the government interference. Our state constitutions are in place to do the same thing. The statement on the ballot will be, the adoption of this amendment would separate residential real property into its own class of property for purposes of property tax assessments. The amendment would authorize the legislature to create a subclass of owner-occupied primary residence. Does that state or even imply that there will be a reduction in residential property taxes? It doesn't, because it won't. As written in the 2023 legislation, says lawmakers may create a subclass for occupied residential homeowners. This gives flexibility to lawmakers to do nothing, lower the assessment rates, or increase the rates if the state continues to see shortfalls in revenue, which they say they have. We know that's bogus. Would any of us pretend to believe they would not turn to the citizen tax base to compensate that through higher taxation of property? The part I read above, as written, that was Leo Wolfson's line from that Cowboy State Daily article.
Right. Okay. See, my thought also, and I did talk to Judy about this, I think it was yesterday on the air. Every time we come up with a solution that's more complicated than the original complicated problem, then we're just putting ourselves deeper in the hole here. You don't solve a problem by making the problem even more complicated than it was before. You want to uncomplicate it. So, in this case, I would say this is an idea that creates more classes and more layers of government and more that the tax assessor has to figure out, which just is going to create a bigger mess. I would much prefer a simpler solution, and the simpler the better. And if we have to pass a constitutional amendment, I'm with you on that one, because I like right now how restricted Wyoming government is, and let's keep it this restricted, if not more.
Well, when we proposed doing a constitutional amendment to go to acquisition value based off the purchase price of the home, it was said by many of our legislators that would be, too much of a burden to do. So at that time you couldn't do that, but now you can do this. So that it has nothing to do with changing the Constitution. Although if we're going to change the Constitution to undo something that has been done, like in 1988. You want to be very careful with that because you're opening up, like they've quoted and said, Pandora's box.
Right.
So you want to be mindful of that. And then, if you really want to get away from it, you really want to uncomplicate something, Glenn, House Bill 203, where it exchanged property taxes for a sales tax, that alleviates needing an assessor altogether and a whole lot of this.
Yeah, I'm in favor of that one because then we just don't have Wyoming property taxes at all. I think that's a much simpler solution because anybody can understand it. It's easy to implement, so much better solution.
I'd like to also say that people that are interested in this, on my Facebook page, Rosemaring Saban, Rozmaring, last name Czaban, there's a lot of public posts that I have done about this constitutional amendment, and they can understand it's very complex, but hopefully they can understand the reasoning why we should steer clear of this.
All right. Thank you for calling in, Rose. Appreciate it. Yeah, I do think that's why I wrote a book called The Uncomplicated Life, which is still out there, by the way. You can find it on Amazon or local bookstores. But no, in general, the best way to solve a problem is not to make it more complex. The problem with property taxes, in part, not the only problem, but in part the problem with property taxes is it's so complex, nobody understands it. Even those people who have to assess your property don't quite understand everything that they're doing. It's a complex system. Making it more complex doesn't solve the problem. Makes the problem even bigger. In the state of Wyoming, there are highways that need your attention. You can adopt a highway.
A highway just merged with a beautiful little 2-lane scenic bypass. And now they have an off-ramp of their very own.
Yes, make sure Wyoming highways stay clean and well-maintained. Adopt a highway today.
Take Glenn anywhere with the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods on AM 1030 K2 Radio.
Time is 8:49. Off to go to the icebox. Frank Gambino's waiting by. So, Frank, I just saw a picture here. It's an old-fashioned phone that was sitting on a desk. You know, the rotary kind.
Yeah, I remember those,
yes.
Yeah.
In fact, those are the ones I have seen young people try to use it. They make the mistake of they dial it, and then they try to figure out where to push send.
I know. It'll do, you know what? Once you dial it, it'll send by itself.
Yes, that's right. Well, even if they can figure out how to turn the dial in the first place, because they're not quite sure how that works. But then this is in an antique shop. So think about that.
Yeah.
It's in an antique shop, Frank. How old does that make you feel? Yeah. So then somebody, you know that little round part in the middle where you put a number or something like that?
Your phone number's in the middle, yeah.
So someone wrote Jenny. 8675309. Now, you and I think that's funny. Yeah. We get it.
Yeah. No one else would. Yeah.
No, of a certain age, they're going to go and take a look at that and think, so okay, that's Jenny's phone number. Mm. You don't sing along with that, because as I read that, there were people already in their minds singing the song in their head.
And sometimes it'll occur to them like a half an hour later. I'm like, hey.
Oh, yeah, that's the Jenny thing with the 8675309. Oh, I get that. Okay. Yes. See, Frank even knows the song over there. Okay. I'm just saying that there are certain generational things, and there are times when I do hear people laughing at something of a younger generation, and I'm standing there going, what?
Yeah.
Because I don't know. I don't know what they're talking about.
There's a big gap. There's an enormous gap.
But how do you feel, though, that when you walk into a store like this, and I love going into the kinds of shops that have all sorts of old days. I love looking at typewriters, Frank.
Yeah. I look at toys I used to play with.
Yes. And you look at something that to you was just yesterday, but it's now in an antique shop.
Yeah.
Then you realize if that's the case,
then Frank, we need to be in the antique shop.
Yes, Frank, you should be in the antique shop at that point. What also gets me is when I take a look at stuff that I used to have in my bedroom as an adult. Like, here's a radio alarm clock.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to have that very model was right next to my bed. Now it's an antique.
Oh, yeah. And there's more of that coming. In the Major League Baseball playoffs that moves along today, there is one game as Milwaukee will take on the New York Mets in that their deciding game of that best-of-3 series in the National League. Yesterday, Milwaukee beat the Mets 5-3 with 3 runs in the 8th inning. Cheyenne native Brandon Nimmo went 1 for 3 for the Mets with an RBI in that game. So the winner of that game will take on Philadelphia in the next round of the National League playoffs. Also in the National League, San Diego over Atlanta 5-4. So they'll take on the Los Angeles Dodgers in the second round as the Padres won that series 2-0. In the American League, how about Kansas City, who hasn't been in the playoffs in 9 years and has endured some brutal seasons, yet they made it to the second round with a 2-1 win over Baltimore to win that series 2-0. They'll take on the New York Yankees next. And the Detroit Tigers, another team that's been bad for a while. Now they've resurrected themselves. Their last playoff appearance was in 2014, and they beat Houston 2-0 with a 5-2 win yesterday. And the Astros have been in the AL Championship Series 7 straight years. So Detroit will play Cleveland in the second round of the baseball playoffs. In high school volleyball from yesterday, Laramie over Cheyenne East 3-0. They're the number 1 rated team in 3A, and Cheyenne Central over South 3-0. Central and Laramie will play later on tonight. In high school football, Cheyenne South will forfeit this week's game against Campbell County due to an inordinate amount of injuries that the Bison have endured. Plus, they have not won a game this year, and they have been killed in every single game so far. So they have 38 players on the roster, but evidently about 19 of them actually just practiced this week. So they are going to scratch this game and then return to play in 2 weeks against Laramie. Now, coming up on Friday in 4A, Sheridan will be at Cheyenne Central, Cheyenne East will be at Kelly Walsh, Laramie will be at Natrona, and Thunder Basin will be at Rock Springs. And in junior college soccer, the Casper College women's team, they are 7-2-3 after a 4-0 win over Central Wyoming the last time out. The Casper College men's team, they tied Central Wyoming 3-3 the last time out, so they're 8-4-1, and both of the Casper College teams will host Select College on Saturday. The LCCC men's team 8-2 after a win over Trinidad. The LCCC women's team 6-4-2 after a win over Trinidad, and both of the Golden Eagle teams will take on Western Nebraska coming up on Saturday.
In baseball, do you have a wild card pick?
No.
Okay. I'll ask you that as we get closer into.
We have one more game in this wild card round.
Oh, okay. Because as we get closer, there's always that team that's the outlier who might surprise everybody.
Right, yeah. And teams, in baseball especially, sometimes you get hot at the end of the year and all of a sudden, boom. Who are these guys? They're beating everybody.
Okay. I'll ask you that one later as we get closer. All right, thank you, Frank. Coming up on some local business that we have to take care of. News time after that. It's Wake Up Wyoming.